Welcome to the Geo Owl podcast.
The new era of intelligence.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Geo Owl podcast. I am the facilitator of the evening, Matt Mylott with Signal Fire Radio, and the host for the Geo Owl podcast is CEO and founder of Geo Owl, Nick Smith. Nick, welcome back to the studio. It's great to see you since last week. How have you been?
Matt, good to see you again. I'm doing awesome. Excited to be back here talking more nerd stuff about Geo Owl.
Is it though? I mean,
it's super nerdy.
It's nerdy, but it's like
such a
nerdy
niche.
with like sky high testosterone. Maybe, I don't know. Nerdy,
Yeah.
like legit nerdy to me is people that writing code for something that doesn't really have an impact on diplomacy, international affairs, or saving people's lives.
Right.
So,
well, I guess
I
you
mean-
can be nerdy about anything, really, but
There's so much more sex appeal to intelligence, expertise, and things like that. Have you?
it sounds sexier than it is. I can guarantee you
Well,
that.
I don't know. The Marine Corps sounded sexier than what it really was, but I still loved it and was still
Right.
passionate.
You just went
about
in
it.
for the shorts. I understand.
Silkies. Yeah, you're lucky I'm not wearing them right now.
Am I though?
Well, you wouldn't really see it anyway, so it's not a big deal. Have you been at any concerts recently? It's been weighing on
No.
my mind. We got new amphitheater here in Wilmington.
This new live Oak Pavilion in Wilmington is awesome. I'm going to Trevor Noah, who's coming into town here at the end of the month.
The comedian,
Yeah.
British, right?
I think he's African, South African. But he hosts
That's
the,
close. Yeah, he hosts a late night show,
yeah,
right?
close enough. Yeah, he hosts the Daily Show. I think he's coming into town on the 25th or something like that. But we got tickets to that, so that'll be a good time. I have not been there for a show yet, but my fiance loves Trevor Noah, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see if she
Right on.
leaves me for him at the end of the night.
Well, if he's got an accent, you're already one below. I mean,
I'm
us
done.
as Americans, we're just like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm done.
So innocent struggle of mine is I'm like a hardcore concert goer. And even though the amphitheater just opened up like 2 months ago, I've been to like 5 shows. It's ridiculous.
Nice.
And this last weekend, I went to 311, Iration, and it was funny. I felt like the first couple shows I went to, their audio was kind of off. Like it was like low volume, sounded like speakers were going in and out. Man, the 311 concert, it was like I may as well have been like on the moon and just like in
They
this.
nailed it, huh?
It was epic.
Awesome.
Yeah, like the bass, like you're wondering if it was going to give you like a heart murmur, and it was a good time. So
If you don't have a heart murmur when you go to a concert, then why go?
just stay home. If this isn't going to pose a threat to your psychological or physical well-being, it's not worth it.
Right.
But I have had friends that have seen some comedy shows there, and they spoke very highly of it, and it was a great setting. So I don't know. Maybe Geo Owl could be a sponsor. Would that be appropriate for you guys for a concert venue?
Sure, why not?
Maybe if it was like some crazy butt rock band that like they play at like Rock 105 up in Jacksonville that like the whole Marine Corps listens to.
Yeah, it might make sense. I don't know. I believe Live Oak Bank sponsors the one here, and I think they do great. So
So no banners in the near future.
probably not, but
At least not at the concerts.
but I might be there, hanging out, having a good time. So
Heck yeah. So so last week we did an incredibly deep dive into Geo Owl. The overarching objectives, some of the main avenues of business, services, products that your team provides. I'm really curious as far as your role, and you have all these different team members that provide a very niched asset and skill set to the team. So from the outside, understanding what Geo Owl is fundamentally, I feel like you're like the captain of the ship. So even though you're here in Wilmington, North Carolina, I envision at least your role like you're freaking sitting in the situation room and you're like, I don't know if you're raining down electrons from like a C-130 gunship. Like, can we spend some time talking about like some of the key roles within Geo Owl and what the hell their day-to-day routine looks like? Because I mean, you guys, you got assets that are embedded with teams that are deployed, that
Right.
are forward operating. You got a bunch of Geo Owl team members at JSOC in Tampa, or am I getting that right?
Well, we are embedded with the Special Operations Command in various locations.
Okay, right. I think that's fascinating, and I'm just curious, to what extent you can share this information. Let's digest, three
Sure.
or so roles within the company, what that role is, what typically their background consists of, and what their daily routine looks like, either if it's deployed or if it's, in continental U.S. Let's start with yours.
Right,
So-
mine's the easiest. I think I got that down. So yeah, I work out of our headquarters here in Wilmington, North Carolina. My day-to-day varies based on what our priorities are in the business. I spend a lot of time working within the defense industry, talking to other contractors, focusing on opportunities, building solutions to solve our customers' problems. So I spent a lot of time doing that, in addition to my other roles of marketing, developing our technology and things like that. So I vary day to day, depends on what we're focusing on. One day it might be an HR thing, and then the next day it might be business development or building a proposal, or it might be working on new requirements for our technology.
Now, has your role historically, since the infancy of Geo Owl, has it kind of looked the same way, but just on a grander scale as you've scaled the business?
It's definitely evolved. I used to spend a lot of my time recruiting. When we first started, we were primarily focused on services. And so I'd spent a lot of my time recruiting. And it's a very tough space to recruit in, the intelligence space, because there's such a limited number of people with security clearances and things like that. So I would actually spend a lot of my time recruiting. But then as we grew and acquired more contracts, and I was able to bring on a fantastic business partner, I was able to step back from that role and focus more on the overall business operations across the spectrum of BDHR, finance, marketing, that sort of thing. So everything under the sun. But now we're at the point where, my focus varies day to day. It just depends what we have going on. So we do spend a lot of time communicating our ideas to the government and to the military of, hey, we think, you're looking for this, so we think you should do it this way, and here's why. So we spend a lot of time farming the brains and minds of our fantastic teammates in order to build new solutions and opportunities for everybody. So, my day to day, I come into the office, I get in about 8 o'clock or so, and then I bust out a few emails, and then usually by 9 I'm in some sort of meeting, and then I'll have various meetings throughout the day. And then I always try to carve out a few hours for focus time to just focus on doing whatever individual task. And I always try to have some time for creativity as well. I think creativity is vitally important to anyone in a leadership or decision-making role. If you want to have any sort of vision, you have to carve out time to have a vision, to create a vision. That's one of the mistakes I made early on, was I would just focus so heavily on the raw numbers of getting proposals out the door, or recruiting the maximum amount of people, or posting the most amount of things on our marketing channels. Whereas now I have a much more thorough understanding of what it actually takes to do the work and be a leader, and to have vision. And to have that, you have to carve out time to think and let your brain work. Step away from the devices for a second and think about where you want to go, where you're at in any process, and where you'd like to lean forward into in the future. So, I typically, get done around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then go home and enjoy time with my family. So.
Yeah,
that's a typical day for me.
So you have you have 2 locations here in Wilmington, correct?
No, we have
Or
one.
I'm sorry, North Carolina.
Here in North Carolina, we have an office here in Wilmington, and then one in Fuquay-Varina, right in downtown. That's where our Chief Growth Officer, Jim Moore, works out of. And he's running primarily business development operations out of that office. And he's a longtime industry veteran, super knowledgeable, one of the absolute best solutions architects / proposal people in industry, and in my opinion, in the world. So, he runs those operations out of Fuquay.
And you shared with me before the show, and I loved it because I'm a veteran as well. But you and Jim served together, correct, in the same unit?
Yeah, so we served in the Army. I got out in around the beginning of 2006, and he stayed in the Fort Bragg area and took a job as a contractor for a company named L3 Communications, which is still in existence today in a different format than when he worked with them. But yeah, he worked with them after the military service, so he's been in the Fort Bragg area forever and really understands the nuances of program management and intelligence operations in the defense industry. As one of the absolute best in the Fort Bragg area.
How much time do you and the rest of your leadership team? How much time do you guys spend in D.C.? I mean, is that
D.C.
is that significant?
Our necessary evil. We're always up there. We work a lot on classified endeavors, so we spend time in SCIFs, secure compartmented information facilities.
Never heard that before. I thought a SCIF was a little fiberglass flat bottom boat.
It's also that's a Carolina SCIF, right? You see a lot of those in the water here. But, in the intelligence community, we work out of SCIFs. That enables us to work on classified type of work.
Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you're in this, is it like Mission? I'm thinking Mission Impossible where Tom Cruise is dropping down into that one room that's tied off from the rest of the world in every aspect. What makes a SCIF a SCIF?
It's kind of like that, really. I mean, you do feel tied off from the world. You're working in a place you can't bring your cell phone in. Oh, I know. How do we survive? But you're working on classified networks and things like that. But in the intelligence space, you just get used to it. That's part of daily life. Is you tell the world, hey, I'm not going to be available for the next 6 hours. So if you're trying to call me, then good luck, but you won't be able to get a hold of me.
Now, are these locations, are they in federal buildings, or are they in totally clandestine farmhouses?
So typically, if we're working on a proposal or something like that, it'll be in a contractor's facility. So as government contractors, we have what's called a facility clearance, and we can some of the contractors have their own SCIFs, so they can work on classified proposals. So if we're working on programs that are in the cleared space, a lot of times the actual proposal itself is classified. So not just the work and the outcomes of that work, but the proposal is classified. So we have to be up there for that and to work on those. That's not something we can do here locally.
How many team members do you have that actually fill that specific role, physically going to D.C., working out of SCIFs, developing, architecting proposals? And
I'd say 10 or so doing that type of work. But it varies depending on what we're working on.
Right.
So
I love it. God, that's so cool. All right, so that's kind of the foundation of what you guys do up in D.C., and I would imagine you probably spend a lot of time.
D.C. is also, in our industry, obviously all the major defense contractors up there. So we spend a lot of time up there networking and doing business development, things like that. And then also when we get the opportunity to meet with our customers, like the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency in Springfield, we take that opportunity to go there and meet them and of course spend time with our employees that we have up there.
So I want to touch back on that in a minute because you're opening the door to a whole avenue of conversation, because I want to dive deeper into not necessarily who your consumers are, but who are your stakeholders within the federal government, within the DoD, that you guys are engaging with at Geo Owl directly, that are the decision makers saying, we're going to do business with Geo Owl. But let's get there in a second. Excuse me. So take us south down to Florida. You got a bunch of team members in Florida. I know SOCOM, they have their massive presence in Florida with the headquarters being down there. Your team members on a daily basis down there, I'd imagine their routine functions look differently than what your team members here at your headquarters in Wilmington look like.
Right.
So could you take, I don't know, your typical, I keep on wanting to say operator, but they're analysts, correct? For the
Right.
most
So an
part?
intelligence analyst. So intelligence analyst or geospatial intelligence analyst working on a program is, their day-to-day is very different. And I've obviously done this work for a long time. So I've spent a lot of time in the analyst chair and a lot of shift work and things like that over the years. But their day-to-day is they go into typically a U.S. government or military installation, and they enter their own skiff, right? So they're working on classified networks and things like that. And they're working on whatever the intelligence operation is of the day. So our geospatial intelligence people, they could be doing, depending on what their specific function is, they could be doing things like full motion video analysis, where they're actually analyzing the video coming off of a manned or unmanned sensor that could be flying anywhere in the world. So they're actually looking at what's coming off of the video and providing in-depth analysis and catching things that most people wouldn't catch that help us determine the ground truth. Some of our other analysts do a myriad of things. Sometimes they're working with various data architectures to help our customers understand their data a little bit better. So it just depends on their role and function within their mission.
So from what I'm gathering, like the primary role of your team members down at SOCOM, they're taking what was the term, near on time or
Near real time.
near real time?
Yeah.
So they're taking near real time imagery, whatever intelligence, and they're digesting that and basically educating the commanders and the team leaders or whoever on what this information means.
Right.
Now, do they have a frequency to provide? I wouldn't imagine that they have a frequency to provide like tactical insight as far as how to operationalize the data, or they're focused on just translating what they're seeing into what they need to know.
Our job is to provide the decision maker with the right information, accurate, timely, detailed intelligence. How we derive at that varies, but at the end of the day, it's the government and the military's decision to, use that information however they seem fit. In certain instances, we do provide consultation and suggestion, but for the most part, those decisions are what we call inherently governmental decisions. So the government makes those decisions. You wouldn't want to place those on the hands of a contractor or something like that.
Right.
But it really does depend on the operation and the location and what our actual role and function is as a contractor. So, we do help develop concepts of operation of, hey, here's some courses of action that you can take that will maximize safety and reduce risk in some instances. And then in some cases, we just say, hey, this is what's down here. It's your call. What do you want to do?
How receptive? I mean, you've been in the industry for a long time. Given your experience, the history of Geo Owl, is there a frequency for you to provide your best interpretation of the data and the consumers listen to what you're saying and make a decision that's kind of contrary to what you feel would be the most sound decision at that moment?
Right. So, nothing in this community operates alone, right? We work as a partnership with the government. It's very rarely do you run into those situations where, we can't come to a consensus on what the actual ground truth is. When we do arrive at those, there are processes in place, and specifically at Geo Owl, we think about these things, right? We think about how do we resolve conflict and come to a conclusion. So we have processes in place for resolving that. and coming up with the best answer. And sometimes there is no answer, and sometimes the answer is I don't know. And that's something in the intelligence community I think there's a tendency a lot of times for people to suggest things just to suggest things, when optimally the most prudent thing to do is to say I don't know. I think there's a certain humility to a lot of people in the intelligence community to say that, to say I don't know what that is. Let's take our time. Let's collect more information. Let's figure it out. But sometimes the time is a factor. Sometimes lives are on the line. Sometimes things happen quickly and decisions need to be made. So sometimes I don't know isn't good enough, and you gotta look at other information and data and figure out something to get at the best answer that's available. So
one of the plights that I've held near and dear to my heart since my military service is being adaptive to situations, just making a decision now given what you know at this moment. And a common thread throughout the military, a good decision today is better than a great decision tomorrow. Like, make a decision, move forward. Is there people did you experience anything since you've been in the intelligence industry where there's certain stakeholders that, I would imagine it's not an industry where you want to be beating your chest, acting like you got all the answers.
Right.
And
if you're asking if there's egos in the intelligence community, the answer is yes.
Okay, yeah.
There's some massive egos in the intelligence community.
Where you have certain people that have had certain level of successes.
But it's not an industry that values that ego. So if the ego exists, you'll quickly learn that you're wrong a lot of times. And it's a real case for humility, just because this is where diversity comes into play, right? Just because someone isn't speaking up doesn't mean they don't have anything to say. Sometimes the best voices are the people that you have to kind of dig into, right? You have to ask them, what did you see? What do you think? So working with people that are more introverted than extroverted. People with various backgrounds have different perspectives on things and can understand what the overall options of a situation are. So it's helpful to have that diversity in the intelligence community. And having that diversity of ideas is paramount to coming up with a good decision. So is there ego? Absolutely. There's egos involved in probably any endeavor, but this is an industry where if your ego is too big, bad things happen. So we work as a team. We work in partnership with our customers, and we try to put those egos to bed to come up with the best answer.
So talking about knowing when to say I don't know, I want to say there was a Jack Ryan scene in Patriot games where they're like in a room and all eyes are on him, on Jack Ryan, and he gets to a point where he's just like, I don't know. I can't say. And
right.
It's like a tough bullet to bite, but at the same time, it's like lives are at stake. And it's like, what's better to do? Say you don't know or go with your instinct? And is that a factor that plays a common role in your, in Geo Owl's function and the services they provide to the government? Like, do you find yourself in a bind where what's better to say, I don't know, or go with your gut?
Well, presumably, if you hire Geo Owl, you're going to get at a better answer, right? Of
course.
You're going to get at a much better answer because we have analysts that are engaged, that we seek to improve the trade craft through training so that they don't come to places where they don't have the understanding and know-how and knowledge of how to proceed. That's what we provide that's a little bit different. Our people really care about the missions that they support. So, you're just going to get better answers. That comes from a culture that we have about, taking our jobs and missions serious, while at the same time really caring about our people. Our people are the absolute best in the industry. They've worked on some of the most high-profile high impact missions available, and they're relied on time and time again, and they always step up. So, obviously there's always instances in intelligence where decisions need to be made, and they need to be made quickly. We're experts at getting you to the right answer, or helping you get to the right answer. So that's what we do. That's different. We actually care. We don't just see our people. We really value our team members. Every single one of our team members is absolutely vital and important. And the work they do every day it can't be understated. They're really heroic. The amount of time and energy, sleepless nights and travel. I mean, these people are the absolute best. And, you can go to sleep at night knowing that we have the best and brightest working on these really tough problems.
I love that. Was a great answer, by the way. So thank you for
Was it good enough?
No, yeah, it was.
Okay,
It was awesome.
all right.
Well, hey, we're almost out of time, but I did want to get one high level response from you. Recently, our current executive administration drew a line in the sand in Afghanistan, saying we're pulling everybody out, all of the U.S. assets, personnel, what have you, without getting political and whether or not that was a good decision, because we all have our own opinion. It opens my mind to a potential of the industry changing possibly. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't have boots on the ground in Afghanistan anymore. Like, how does Geo Owl, the intelligence industry, are they going to be affected? And is your business flow and the level that you're scaled at right now, given the last 10 plus years, is a move like that, can it steer the future of the intelligence community and not to mention defense contractors? Yeah,
so I don't think it's political actually to say that was an awful decision. If you look,
I was just opening the door to not get political.
I understand, but I don't think it's political. No matter who you voted for, you have to realize that the terrain we've given up in Afghanistan, the lives lost, the strategic position that we've given up it's sad. We probably, there's a million different things that could have gone differently. Be that as it may, we had a strategic position between Iran and Pakistan, and now we don't. And now the Chinese will move in, and whatever happened will happen. I always say that no one can predict the future. I try not to do that. But I think it was a poor decision. Now, that has ramifications throughout not just our industry, but for the United States. Specifically in our industry, Afghanistan's been such a large part of the work that we do, supplying intelligence over there, equipment, you name it. Obviously there's a lot of money spent there, and that's been going away slowly but surely. So if you're caught off guard, that's your fault. That's why we've been developing technology and focusing more on our technology, engineering, and innovation. So less about supplying forward deployed solutions and more about thinking about things strategically, focusing on technology, looking at our current and future problems. We're in a space now where, we're really in a competition with China that's strategic in nature. We have to think about this very closely. They want to take over the world by 2040 or whatever, and they're making steps to do so. So in our industry, we have to focus on how do we help the United States of America stay ahead of that? What technology do we need? What innovation do we need? So we focus on those things, and we think about that when we're creating our technology. Is like, how does this have a strategic impact to where we're at today and where we're going tomorrow? So moving away from, I think your broader question is about the global war on terrorism. So our investment as a country into the global war on terrorism is not as heavy as it once was. That has safety and security concerns. That will certainly be a problem moving forward. Terrorism still exists. It will continue to exist. But from a geopolitical and strategic perspective, we're going to focus on our adversaries like China and Russia and other actors that, via China and Russia,
Right.
that are more of a threat back to kind of the days before 9/11. But we learned a lot, and hopefully we continue to learn about ways to prevent attacks on our homeland. So that's it obviously has ramifications. So it's more of a strategic, what they call near peer adversary. So how do we change the way we do intelligence, right? So how do you collect on people in a space where we can't fly aircraft? How do we understand an adversary that is technologically just as advanced as we are in every metric? How does that change? So we're really at a pinnacle and a point in our country where we need people to be innovative. We need to be thinking outside the box, or else we will be in a very different world come 2050. But our role is to just help the military and help the government think outside the box and to provide options and solutions for them to leverage that can keep us safe and keep us more informed. And hopefully, the next 20 years will be a nice, smooth ride.
Right. And it's going to take the thinking outside the box and the innovative element that Geo Owl, you guys function on that daily. It lies at the heart of your organizational DNA is what it sounds like.
Yeah, innovation is something we focus heavily on. So we actually rate in our performance metrics. We look at on a day-to-day basis of what new ideas are people coming up with. What are we value that, so we incentivize that way of thinking throughout our business, and I think that provides ultimately a better solution for the government. Right, we're not just scoring numbers on a performance review saying you're a 4, you're a 3, you're a 2, whatever. It's kind of arbitrary numbers. We look at the day-to-day. Hey, what new ideas do you have? Are you coming up with new things? Have you thought about this process differently? What are some different applications for this technology over here that we can use in this different space or different scenario? So we really think innovatively throughout the business and throughout our customer spaces. And we try to instill in our people that innovation is a valued aspect, and we don't hire people because we just want them to go to work. We hire them because they're smart and creative and capable, and we have the best people in the world. So they, relying on their minds to think of new ways to do things has been a successful endeavor for us.
Heck yeah. Well, America sleeps soundly at night because of all the brute strength that goes with military forces. But being privy to the conversation that we've been having on this podcast, I love hearing the intricacies and the nuances about the services and the dynamic of how Geo Owl functions within the intelligence community. So, that is that's who's backing up the actual ground pounding operators in country that are setting.
I would never take anything away from the men and women on the ground, boots on the ground, getting the job done. We have the absolute best in the world, and everything we do is to keep them safe. We think about that every day of how do we make sure that SEAL or that airman or Marine, even Marines we care about. It's crazy. It
can be tough. It can be tough. Trust me.
Silkies and all. we really think about, hey, is this going to keep our people safe on the ground? So that it's a lot more thought out than you would glean from the outside. We really care about our warfighters. They're super important to us, and we really care about them. And as a community, everything we do is to keep them safe. I mean, really, at the end of the day, they're the ones that are kicking down doors and stopping bad guys from doing bad things.
I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are all out of time for this week's episode, where we aim to have engaged conversations designed to advance the effectiveness of intelligence operations through technology, innovation, and application. This is the Geo Owl podcast, and we will see you next time.
Visit geoowl.com and learn how Geo Owl implements next-generation intelligence advancement technologies to aid the Department of Defense with precision and expertise analysis. Geo Owl.
The new era of intelligence.